King of the Feego, Chaser of the Nethers. One of the most uniquely ridiculous characters in the story, and it's his blend of ridiculous awesomeness and surprisingly captivating humanity that really sets him apart from most characters. This variation of contrasting characteristics is one often used in Kingdom. However, the first aspect is one of the most extreme for Mr. Feego. He's the type of guy to laugh at the idea of Yotanwa being too powerful to rape, the type of guy to find Yotanwa being left standing alone on top of a sea of enemy blood to be a turn on, and the type of guy to take advantage of a dire situation by talking about how he's going to use allied tribes as sacrifices to fuck with them, and of course the type of guy to outwardly talk about his balls anytime the opportunity presents himself. A hilariously crude, eccentric, lively, and sadistic person, the Feego King is someone whose personality always brings entertainment whenever he gets panel time. He's someone who's always here to have a good time, no matter how ridiculous the circumstances are, and it's hilarious. What really sells the persona is the goofball shtick not feeling forced. Being someone who's the leader of a savage mountain tribe, it's pretty fitting that he's crude, prideful, and sadistic. However, like pretty much all mountain tribesmen, he's someone who's had to swallow his pride before Yotanwa's monstrous strength, which adds this funny dynamic of him being the great prideful king of his legendary tribe, while at the same time a simp, a beta, a con man. This dynamic makes his later oddball moments feel natural, and makes it so his weirdness is presented in a very nonchalant way. Like he knows he's kind of a fraud, and even finds that fact funny, but he's still kind of that nigga at the same time, so he might as well choose chasing those nethers with all his heart. It really does feel like it's just him being his fucked up ass self instead of trying to be funny, and someone who's unironically and somewhat justifiably being this way is something I find hilarious. It's a very it is what it is attitude for something you should definitely not have that attitude for. This awareness adds more nuance to his personality, and also brings up an interesting worldview of his. It isn't just the idea of fighting for the nethers of the woman he can't rape that's foolish. War in general to him is foolish. He seems to have some glimpses of understanding of what he sees as a more sophisticated and objectively true philosophy, yet he willingly partakes in these foolish acts regardless. He's someone who's chasing the ultimate thrill, whether it be the nethers or the bloodshed, which adds an interesting level of selfishness. Yet at the same time, he's fairly honorable and respectable, which really helps in making his character feel more grounded. Instead of just being some wacky, entertaining character, his human side arguably stacks up to his entertaining side in quality, and his wacky side makes his human side feel more impactful. Since, like with Dofi, you can really tell what he values as honorable means a lot to him if even his fucked up ass can appreciate it. Like all tribes leaders, he places great importance on the position he has, making sure to try to keep his clan safe, thriving, and dignified. While all tribespeople are savages, they have a very good reason to be. The situations they and their clans are placed in are horrific, and they're not only tasked with surviving the cruelties of the mountain world, but feel obligated to venture out and expand their territory for better, safer, and more dignified lives, which I find to be very compelling. This also ties into the mountain tribe's respect for kinfolk, which culminated into one of my favorite moments in the series, Feego King's speech to Rozo. In this fight, Feego King was outclassed by Rozo martially, and even had Rozo make an attempt at spitting on his pride by citing the differences in their level of weight being him being a king, essentially saying Danto isn't a real king like he is. With the previous talk about Danto kind of being a fraud, one could think he'd get offended at this since he failed to bring the honor he initially wanted to bring to his tribe by defeating Yotanwa, and instead had his tribe suffer defeat at her hands, and even surrender instead of fighting to the bitter end, like their ideal glorified image of what a warrior should be like. But instead he comes back with the clapback of the century, and challenges Rose's idea of what a king should be. Shit just got real now when one of the most important aspects of both of their prides are simultaneously put on the line in this debate. If you want to trigger Rozo and put him in his place, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. He knows Rozo sees himself as the one true king, even over Yotanwa. Since the Quanrong were the original of the Western Mountain tribes, Rozo feels like all the other mountain tribes are just petty lesser tribes that desperately try to get out of his true tribe's shadow. Meanwhile, Feego King finds the fact that someone can even cling on to something so pathetic as laughable. While the Quanrong were content with their claim to fame and decided to stay stagnant since they have what they think is their title as the Alpha tribe, the other tribes have pursued greater heights by, like I said, attempting to venture out and expand their territory for better, safer, and more dignified lives. They aren't content with living in the small, hellish areas of the mountains and forests. They desire greater territory,
Pointing out such a stark difference in courage between the supposedly lesser tribes and the quote-unquote alpha tribe is the ultimate way to disrespect Rozo's pride as a king. A true king would not be content with such a meaningless existence. A true king would especially not lie to himself to tuck away his insecurities, instead of facing harsh truths like Danto did with his inferiority to Yotanwa in any way, let alone a way that displays great character like being able to laugh off the fact. A true king would not be a coward. Now, while this was the ultimate diss that Danto could have given, and that made the moment very epic, the point of the moment wasn't to be spitting so much facts that he destroys Rozo's perception of himself. Rozo's so far gone that he's long since had a state of mind where he needs himself to be what he wants to be to live with himself. So while Rozo got triggered, he only hesitated for a moment and hid away his insecurities like he's always had, but Danto managed to prove his weight was superior to Rozo's by overpowering him badly despite the difference in martial ability. And despite still being noticeably weaker than Rozo overall due to the difference in martial ability, the epicness of the scene wasn't dependent on him surpassing Rozo, since he still got to show Rozo what true conviction is. One is a true con man through and through, while the other has the will to take on the world. And with how epic the Kingdom world is, basically filled to the brim with absolute monsters, it really shows how much of a thug Feego is, and how much he truly cares for his people. The standard mountain tribe characterization for Yotanwa's forces was enough to build a nice contrast between Feego's selfish and selfless side, but this extreme variation of it is much more impactful to me, especially with the comparisons you can make to Roger. It's pretty iconic how that was the first thing Roger said to Rayleigh, like being willing to face the world is all you really need to say to let someone know you're a true thug, and Danto having the will of Roger in him is one of the most epic things in the story. One more thing is, it also served to add more depth to the mountain tribe's relationship with Kin, which is very nice to get after how much time we've spent seeing them work together. Even though people like Feego look down on the Kin, with Heki being a very big reason why, #shit representative, it speaks volumes how we can find deep admiration and respect for people like that regardless, because of their willingness to try to be great, which also fits in with his ideas of how he sees himself despite being under Yotanwa and thirsting after her nethers, and how he sees the mission to improve the mountain tribe's lives, despite thinking warfare to be objectively foolish. He can laugh off how sad he is while having pride at how great he is at the same time. He can think warfare is foolish while thinking his mission is an honorable one. He's fine with imperfection, as I think he thinks that's what it means to be human.